Welcome, guys, to another edition of the Conversational Bible Companion, and I've got another commentary for you. Now, I don't know whether you guys out there have come across the term alpha widows. Well, essentially, this is a term that's been used to show how damaging premarital relationships with other men before meeting her husband can be damaging to a marriage. And it also then is interrelated to this whole discussion about whether or not it's important for a woman to have a high body count. Now, as you well know, if you have been following the cultural contemporary discussions on high body count, it's amazing to me how the current generation of women have been literally reprogrammed, rewired, reconditioned to believe that a woman's sexual past doesn't matter. Let's put it in context. So 70, 80 years ago, it absolutely did, because invariably most women were virgins. It was a badge of honor to be a virgin. But now, because of the dating game, remember, this is the game that has been, if you like, created by the social engineers to ensure everybody fails. But essentially, you engage in behavior that will ultimately lead to the downfall, if not in your own personal relationships, but society-wide. And so now we're actually at this juncture 3-4 generations along, where the current generation of women simply have absolutely no understanding. Most of them, I would say, have no understanding of why it matters to a man that their chosen wife, or the partner that they choose to be in a relationship with, has as low body count as possible. Well, guys, would you believe it? I've come across a discussion that was held on the Whatever podcast that absolutely blew me away. And it's the sort of discussion around this whole thing about being an alpha widow. This is a woman, again, who's essentially, she's had a sexual encounter before her husband with the wrong type of guy, but it was an encounter that has left her, as this one woman put it, damaged to the point where she's got to leave her marriage, break up the family, and so on and so forth. This is the danger. And in actual fact, because of the way it affects women having these relationships, you can have that one relationship that is so impactful. There is absolutely nothing that a man can do in that situation. So it absolutely blew me away. And in all fairness, this should reap fear, literally reap fear for anyone who is looking to find the woman he wants to settle down with. Because really and truly, unless they're beholden to the religious moral framework, which at its base has God's law and instruction, because he's the author of marriage, then quite frankly, any woman is susceptible to this. Any woman you're going to meet could be susceptible to this. But just before we look at that, I just want to take it back to what does the Bible say. So there's two scriptures that come to mind. The first is Hebrews 13:4. Marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. So that's pretty clear there. The rules are, as far as God has set it aside, is that marriage and the relationships between men and women, referred to here as the marriage bed, that should be kept pure, monogamous. And failure to do that will reap the wrath of God's judgment, because it's seen as adultery and seen as sexually immoral. And then the second scripture is 1 Thessalonians 4 verses 3-5, which is, it is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God. And in all fairness, before we go into the clips, this really does speak about, for men, having moral standards such that they trump and overpower a man or a woman's need for instant gratification. If you can do that, you're less likely to get yourself involved with a woman or a man who is going to compromise your marriage, is going to compromise your long-term security. Because we've seen what divorce does. We've seen what breakups in relationships can do. They do exactly what our enemy wanted to, which is smash society into this confusion. So it's all about, at this moment in time, understanding that we as a society, over the past few decades, we've been reprogrammed and rewired, and that the intersexual dynamics between men and women, they do fit a double standards. There's the double standards that benefit men. In this case, women cannot, be sexually promiscuous and believe that they can behave as men and sleep with as many different partners as they want. It has long-term damage. It will cause long-term damage to them and to their families. But I've been rambling on long enough. Let's go to the clips. We're going to start off with this one from Fresh and Fit.
Women absolutely know that their body count is 100% to some degree tied to their value as a female and their ability to find a man. That's why a bunch of girls didn't want to disclose it, lowered it, or just didn't, or gave some other number.
Or because they don't want to get roasted.
Well, why do they get roasted?
Because your audience is the type of...
It's not about the audience. In general, women know that their body count reflects their value in the dating marketplace, which is why women keep that number close to their chest.
You can see here, these ladies are pushing back. This is the current generation. This is the millennials. You've got to understand, for those of you who are 40-something plus, their pushback to what would appear to be obvious, certainly in generations bygone, about their value as women, tied to the number of partners they haven't had. It seems like a bizarre concept to them. And again, the social engineers needed to ensure that promiscuity is a rite of passage for a woman, and that it should have absolutely no bearing on the partners that they have. Forgetting, of course, that there is a direct effect to a man. Does a man really, a good man who cares about his woman, who cares about his wife to be, does he really want to know that her body has been used many, many times over by other men? You see, going back thousands of years and the generation that have gone before us, there's nothing in our DNA that tells us how we can cope with that. Okay, so that's why the programming that we're seeing today and the degeneracy to try and normalize women, going into sex work, going into OnlyFans, and the current generation believing, well, actually, a man who has a problem with a high body count or women having previous partners, actually is a man who's insecure. The next clip after this, actually, which looks at a particular woman's experience, should really put this to bed. But I digress. Let's move on.
I was blessed enough to be intimate with somebody who blew my mind in every way possible. And it wasn't the sex, it was the intimacy, it was the love, it was the connection. And so I have a pretty high benchmark from which to base my future connections. And
you're screwed.
I would tell him all the time. And if you're watching, he knows. I would tell him all the time, you ruined me.
Oh my God. I mean, you heard it for yourself. You heard it directly from her. Her exact words were, you ruined me. Fellas, guys, especially those of you out there who are simping for these kind of women, believing the narrative that it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter to a woman, so why should it matter to you? Listen to what this woman said. All right, so this is the equivalent of an alpha widow. She's had a sexual, by the way, she's married. At the time of the context with which this discussion is held, she's talking about a time when, or just before she got married. So she met somebody who she'd had a sexual encounter with, and she admitted that this guy wasn't particularly great for her. This guy didn't really tick off all the boxes. He just happened to give her great sex, to put it kindly, to put it nicely. But it ruined her because, as she goes on to say, that sexual encounter became the benchmark by which she would measure everybody else. And you know what? Have a look at Brian's expression here. He is absolutely flawed. Let us continue.
Because now I have this super high expectation. So I'm very aware of it.
There's this, I don't like the term alpha, but it's actually a good descriptive thing here. So you've been with a guy. Mm-hmm. Was he, the sex itself was great, but was he also like really attractive and like hit a bunch of check marks too?
I don't.
This shit is dangerous. Once a girl gets a certain way, bro, you guys are. I'm
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
They're admitting to it. Look, she's actually even apologizing. My God, I'm sorry. Okay, and the sincerity in her face, bless her, but she's actually saying, okay, that the experience has damaged her relationship, and in fairness, any relationship she would have with any other guy. I mean, my God, this is a nightmare. So for all those of you who think, oh well, a woman's body count, because basically what this is inferring now is the number of partners a woman has, the greater the likelihood that she's going to be an alpha widow. And if you're the poor dude who's married to her, well, you're stuffed, essentially. We move on.
But I would say
it's over.
I would say he was a traditionally attractive guy. I don't know.
This is
if he
why
was a 10 out of 10.
This kind of segues into our next conversation that you wanted to talk about is body count.
Mm-hmm.
You've landed on a certain dude that just like it might not even be sex, but it could be like he's just so fucking attractive, or
mm-hmm.
his status, or just like something, his charisma, or the way you feel about him, that is not going to be easily replicated in other men, and you're going to use that guy as the benchmark for all the other guys going into the future.
Absolutely.
This actually stems back to the rating thing. So here's where women get into big trouble. Because you have sexual access to men that you can't get commitment from, those really attractive dudes that will never give you commitment, and then like the guys who will actually commit to you are like 1, 2, 3 points down, either their sex game, status, money, whatever it is. You're gonna be comparing the guy who you can actually get commitment from to the guy who you can't get commitment from, and that makes for a terrible fucking relationship.
You know what, Brian has put it so brilliantly. I mean, my gosh, and actually just watching that, I mean, literally it makes the skin crawl. Watching and listening to that also has made me realize that, you see, this is the reason why, the enemies of humanity did two things back in the 60s. Firstly, they removed the taboo about sex before marriage. They introduced contraception. And then let's fast forward to, was it 2017, when the dating apps came in. What did that do? That introduced two things. Firstly, invariably, it created the Pareto effect, where these women would have no choice but to choose the top tier men, the top tier looking men, such that now that I think Tinder reported a couple of months back now that women will swipe right on the top tier 10. In other words, they will swipe right basically on 1% of the profiles now. Okay, and a lot of this is conditioning through social media. This is conditioning through IG, conditioning women into looking at a certain type of guy to be a sex symbol, whatever else. So forget about content of character, forget about moral code of conduct, forget about all those things. It is the appearance of a high value man, high status, exceptional looks, 6-figure income, all those things. And like Brian said, once you're in that domain, let's face it, no contraception or whatever else, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, we go back to the 60s when contraceptive pill was introduced. What that meant was that these women really were going to be vulnerable to who? To men who didn't care about their chastity. And by so doing, you introduce feminism. It's all fake, by the way. You introduce feminism, you introduce independence, telling women, you go and behave as the worst possible men in society. Have sex with as many as possible. Knowing fully well the chances that this woman is going to come across the one or the guy or guys that will leave an indelible mark on her, an emotional indelible mark that she cannot remove, that would jeopardize her love for her husband or jeopardize critically thinking an attachment with a more suitable mate. This is where we are, guys. This is the paradigm that we're under. So as she explains the story now, I want you guys to think about your own lives. If you're a guy, think about the women that you're going for. Think about whether or not going for a woman with a high body count, okay, may or may not put you in this position that her husband was in. And if you're a woman, ask yourself a question. Do you want to be in a situation where this woman is, where you're actually with a nice guy, but because of the sex you've had previously, you're now damaged because that's your barometer? I spoke to a podcaster literally 24 hours ago who actually said this is why for women you might as well literally choose one guy and one guy only. Don't go with what the earlier women on this particular clip, or for example the previous video that I put out, who believed no you've got to try it before you can buy. It doesn't work when it comes to soul ties. It doesn't work. God made us. He knows why we are to behave in a certain way. He knows what will happen if you try and rewire us a different way. We will simply short circuit, and that's what's happening here with society. We are short circuiting. We move on
because you think you've settled when really you're just shooting out of your league. Okay. But it sounds like you're holding these men to this one guy.
He literally ruined me.
But she actually admitted it. Mm-hmm. She said from her own mouth, she said, he ruined me for other men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's precisely why, segueing here, why I think body count matters. Because eventually it's like Russian roulette. Well, not Russian roulette. You keep rolling the dice, and eventually you're going to land on a dude who fucks you just right, or who's just attractive enough. And then all the guys, let's assume that relationship doesn't work out. That's the benchmark for all the other guys moving forward.
You see, the irony of it is 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work out. Of course it doesn't. The chances of it working out, I mean, with that guy, you're finding the guy. No. And it also leads us on to another lie, this belief that, well, if you're going to, you have to have that perfect sex, really. And this belief that, well, the reason why previous relationships lasted for 20, 30 years was because, well, women were stuck in these relationships. Sexual relationships were pretty bad. No, what happened was they benchmarked each other and learned to find out what worked for each other sexually. And why do you think they did that? Why would they do that? Oh, that's right, because they loved each other that much. They loved each other that much that they would find out, oh, what works. You see, and going back to my other video, okay, you see, in that instance, if a guy gets it wrong or is not good at it at first, you know, his wife isn't, who loves him, is not going to leave him. They're going to work at it so that he gets it right. And there are so many other things, my gosh. If we can send men to the moon, come on people, think. If we can send men to the moon, are you going to tell me that we can't work out how to please each other sexually when we're in a committed relationship? We can't do that. You see, it's only programming. It's only pornography. It's only social media. The incessant, you know, tiptoeing, demoralization and degeneracy, you know, rewiring of our brains that you know, makes us believe that this simply can't be done. It's BS. Of course it can be done. If you're that committed, you will do it. And you see, here's the thing, like I said to a friend of mine a week ago, you see, we only hear about the previous relationships that went bad because that's what makes news. We don't hear about the relationships, you know, possibly 90% of them that went on for 30, 40 years that were really good, that where people worked that shit out. I mean, you know, we move on.
And so the reason why
That's crazy.
the reason why I knew I needed to get a divorce was because I have a crystal clear memory of me having sex with my husband and thinking about this other guy.
My God. I mean, wow. You know what? For those of you who, you know, who are divorced, no fault divorces, by the way, where or your wife just simply walked away. Geez, I know of one situation where, you know, a pastor's wife basically walked away from the marriage because she'd had an affair with their son's best friend, and so on and so forth. It goes on. And by the way, look, this isn't really about you know, pointing the finger at women, but look, I'm trying to deal with this notion that a woman's past bears no relevance on her future. This is to show you that it does, and it can have, you know, far-reaching ramifications. My mouth's dry. You know, and the fact that basically it can have such dire consequences that to the point where she would feel she'd be thinking about another dude. I mean, gosh, you gotta feel for that guy, haven't you? You know, and here's the thing, she looks like the girl next door. Look at Brian's. He is absolutely flawed. His expression mirrors what most of us guys listening and looking at this will be thinking. He's like, wow, this is bad news. You know, here we have Exhibit A, Alpha Widow.
And me knowing in that moment I have to divorce him, because if I don't get out of this marriage, I'm going to cheat on him. I'm going to try to find this. And I know that's really fucked up, but I didn't want to be a cheater.
It's not. That's happened to me too.
So while you were, hold on, let me recap here. While you were having sex with your husband, you were thinking about another man who you were having, who you had better sex with. And because the sex with your husband wasn't as good as the sex with this other man, you wanted to get a divorce.
It wasn't the sex, it was the connection.
Can somebody tell me, look, you see, here's the thing, in a female's mind, that actually means, oh, it was the connection. What? What's the difference? It wasn't sex, it was the connection. Look, either way, guys, that's a red flag right there. That's a red flag. What I'm saying is this, you see, whether she's even had sex with the person or whether it's a full-blown sexual relationship, my gosh, her ability, what she's going to do, she pair bonds with a guy, because that's what this is about, isn't it? She's pair bonded with this dude that's not her husband, hasn't made any commitment to her, and basically speaking, it's ruined. I mean, look. You know, as I said before, God is the author of the human relationships between men and women. He has decided the parameters, not us, or not no hedonistic, you know, ideology or whatever else. No, he has. And so he's made us to understand it is such a significant bond when you have sex with a woman, especially if it's connected in a loving environment, that for a woman especially, it could have this effect. And that made sense, because, you know, when you were given the vows before God, but mind you, not before man, the vows were before God. You were promising God that you were going to stick with this person for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. It was a promise before God. All right, that was before the state basically got involved in marriages. But essentially, what you were then saying is, look, that bond, sexual bond between you, that was what was going to get you through those times. Make sense? Let's move on.
The guy who was really good in bed, how long did you date him for?
6 months.
And how soon did you have that connection after meeting him?
Immediately. It was immediate.
You wait, hold on. I thought a connection is something that takes a while to develop.
No, it's that intrinsic connection that you either have or you don't with a person. It's either there or it's not.
So just
now you can build on that connection to have form deeper connection.
Again, it's Brian's reaction. Just that, this is Brian Atlas, by the way. He makes it pretty clear, okay, that, you know, if you want to have any dealings with him, you know, you can't be a previous sex worker, you can't be a woman with a high body count. And for him, this discussion has proved exactly this has vindicated his choice. This has proved to him exactly why he can't go down that road. But to be honest with you, I think that's the same for all of us. We've all got, I mean, look, I'm not a saint by any stretch of the imagination, you know, but it's made me think about my past relationships and thinking, what was I thinking? Basically, what was I thinking? You know,
wow, this is a red pill if I've ever fucking heard
but
one.
there's different types of connections. There can be a sexual connection.
Well, this was a base primal connection.
Mm-hmm.
And bingo, he's absolutely right. I mean, yeah, it was a base primal connection, because according to her, you know, the relationship lasted, I think, two things to note there. Firstly, it was something that happened very suddenly. So, you know, for the rest of us, what I'm seeing there is something that could happen in a one night stand. Bingo, boom, the wrong person, done. And you never see that person again. But hey, it was a great sexual encounter. We all remember that. We all have that. But I think as men, it doesn't leave so much of a mark for us as it does for women. You know, and this next section here will detail that. But also, what it shows is that for a woman, it is powerful enough for her to find it more difficult to pair bond with a man, another man in the future. And look, you know, there's all sorts of studies to say basically, look, the DNA from previous relationships with other men can find its way to the children that a woman eventually gives birth to. I mean, I don't, you know, I've just heard, I haven't got any, you know, facts, or I haven't seen any real research on it. I've just heard. But would it surprise me? No, not at all. But as I say, as we move on from this, and this has gone on way longer than I thought it would do, but so if you know Adam Soskas, he also has had a discussion about this in relation to Dan Bilzerian, who has recently declared on a podcast that he's now going monogamous. Now, what Adam does, he's got like a panel of females and a panel of men all together to comment on this particular topic. Now, he's of the opinion, like most guys are, that a woman's body count does matter. But what I want you guys to see is how very, very skillfully he gets the women on the panel to realize that it's not the same for men as it is for women. In that here you've got what we refer to as a double standard that unfortunately disadvantages women. They can't rack up a high body count. If a man does, society views it very, very differently. And even in the Bible, we've seen, that Abraham had many wives. So did Isaac. So did Solomon. So did David. Although, let's be clear on this, what transpires for each of these Bible characters who engaged in, should we say, multiple relationships with multiple women, multiple wives, they never saw peace. They did not see peace. Okay, but dare I say, their wives, even in those situations, did not feel it was necessary to break up the family. That's a key point. The family was so strong. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on to the next clip. So once again, this is Adam Sosnick, and he's talking about Dan Bilzerian.
Serial playboy Dan Bilzerian recently said on an episode of The Mighty Pursuit, it's a podcast, that monogamy is superior to a hedonistic lifestyle, a realization he has come to learn only after sleeping with thousands of women.
Not 20,000. 20,000 is a bit ambitious, but I mean, like I said, I was having sex with 3 girls a day on average, at least at a minimum. I mean, if I only had sex with 2 girls in a day, that was like, we're having some real off day or something, right? Yeah. And some days 4, sometimes, whatever, 5, 7, the most was 9.
Wow.
But, I don't know, I had a 9-some with or 10-some, I guess, you count yourself, 10-some.
For all intents and purposes, this guy was an absolute lunatic. But I want you to take note of, if you Google Dan Bilzerian, I mean, he's a man that's very, very well respected because, I mean, look. To sleep with, thousands of women, as he claims to have done, and other people claim that he has done, you've got to understand that he must have appeared to these women as a man of power, a man of clout, a man with enough sex appeal, to let them. It's a very different. So there's very few men that would ever have that kind of power. This is the 1% dude that we often, and say it's the people in the red pill talk about when talk about the high value man. This is a man, he's extremely rich, he's a very resourceful guy, and that's the guy that women are attracted to, full stop. So, but listen to what happens when the panel of females are asked to react to what he says here. But before that though, again, whilst he has lived a life of debauchery, he has now come to the point where he's decided, oh well, you know what, maybe monogamy is probably the best thing for me. Do you know what I reckon? Well, I'll tell you what, let's roll through first.
I don't know, what I kind of landed on was I think it's better to have a monogamous relationship, strange as that is coming from me.
See, personally, I believe the reason why he's come to that revelation is that, look, the guy, I'm going to assume that he's in his late 40s now, maybe even early 50s, and from what I heard through the grapevine, in order to maintain the ability to have sex with that many women, he would often resort to ED tablets or treatment of some sort, which doesn't surprise me actually. Now, you know, you can't be on those tablets, you can't be on those drugs for an extended period without it actually affecting you psychologically and mentally. And so look, it's only my opinion. I actually believe that he's decided, you know what, if I'm monogamous, I don't have that pressure on me. Excuse me, you know, I've got my reputation. I'm going to bag myself, a great girl anyway, because no girls, most women will give their right arm to be with me. So maybe it's a good time to hang up my boots. I don't know. You know, I'd love to read your comments on this. Let's move on.
Yay! All the girls. Sorry, the guys are
You know what's so funny to me?
okay,
hold on.
I'm sorry, I got excited.
Why are you clapping?
Horrible video. Because.
But you were like legit clapping, not like a sarcastic clap. wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's
And
because
hold on.
it's sincere.
Well, you guys all clap seriously, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I just learned something. You're happy for Dan Bilzerian. 3 girls a day, 9 on a good day, thousands of women. He's gonna practice monogamy. Let's clap it up for Dan.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I don't agree. I don't often agree with Adam Sosnick on certain topics. Which, if you know Adam Sosnick, because he's one of the co-hosts for the PBD podcast. I'm not going to go there, but I must say, he dealt with this topic very, very well. And look, the girls were clapping. Dan Bilzerian is talked about having, tensomes and what have you else. They're clapping. There's no feeling of disgust, whatever else. I mean, fair enough. I think Natalia, the lady in the red or purple, whatever, I think it's red. She did actually. You can hear her in the background saying, "Oh, well, maybe not. We're not clapping necessarily about." Well, she's not clapping necessarily about the fact that he's got such a high body count. But regardless of the fact that, well, okay, he's got a high body count, the fact that he's turned monogamous doesn't seem to deter these women's view of him, and that's crucial, very, very crucial. Let's move on.
Gentlemen,
Everybody has their
it's our turn now.
journey.
Some chick, famous, not famous, slept with 3 men a day, 9 on a busy day, says, guys, it's time for monogamy. What would our clap look like? Gentlemen,
it would be no clap. Like,
there's no fucking
Like, cool
clap.
story.
She's used up.
This is what our clap would look. This is what our clap would look like.
One.
You're a hoe.
Really, bitch. So we're
People want to hear what they want. They want confirmations to their
we're
bias.
identifying something that men and women and sex and partners and body count
Yes.
might be a little different out there.
And absolutely right. As you can see there, Adam does a great job trying to explain the double standards. It was amazing. The women who were clapping, it didn't seem to matter to them, and which is normally the case. It doesn't matter to a woman, and the reason why it doesn't matter to a woman, because a woman understands inherently that for a man to have slept with such a high volume of women must be because he is a person of respect, has reputation that other women value, and obviously is good sexually as well, because remember, women, they really do value sex, quality of sex. Certainly this current generation of women have been conditioned for that purpose over and above anything else. Conversely, however, look at Adam's expression over to the men, and I love the way he did that. He role reversed it, transposed it onto a woman who had 9 sons. I mean, it's a no-no for all men out there. Look, any man And we know that there are quite a few out there, that I can think of. People like, for example, Adam 22, who has actually, in intents and purposes, he was pimped out his wife, all by her consent, to have sex with men, purely for money, purely for clout. I mean, look, this is an anomaly. And it's an abomination. Going back to that scripture, going back to that scripture, Hebrews 13:4, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure. This is an abomination. And there's others who would say, well, not everybody believes in that, as though God's law is only restricted to those who believe in God. It's simply not true. When the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, how many of the inhabitants there were believers in God? None of them. I would say basically less than 1%. So did it mean therefore then that 99% of the population were left unscathed? No. He destroyed all those who engaged in immoral practice, immoral sexual behavior. He destroyed all of them. And the scripture makes it pretty clear. Again, in Hebrews 13:4, God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. You can go back to Revelations as well. I believe it's Revelations 24, where the sexually immoral are added to the list of those that will face judgment. But I digress. Let us get back to the video, and what we'll do is we'll start to close this out. I've gone on way too long.
A woman will sleep with a man who has slept with hundreds, if not thousands, of women as a badge of honor. I slept with Leonardo DiCaprio.
She tamed him.
I slept with Andrew Tate. I slept with Hugh Hefner, Will Chamberlain, that 7-foot dude holding it down. Princes, sheiks, presidents, what have you. No man is like, I slept with that dirty ass hoe. She slept with thousands of guys. I'm honored. No guy thinks like that. Sure. Right, gentlemen? So there's a difference here. So, you know what you call a guy who has the ability to sleep with hundreds, if not thousands, of women? What would you call someone like him?
A capable, accomplished man.
As high value dude as it gets. He puts himself in a position for all the victor goes, the spoils, the luxuries of life, the yachts, the cars, the houses, and yes, the women. But a woman who sleeps with 3 dudes a day, 9 on a good day, 2 on a slow day, what are we calling her, Mike?
Poor.
Oh, busy.
She's a porn star or a sex worker.
Yeah.
So there you have it, guys. Look, it's for those of us who are, leaning to a more pure form of living, who want relationships that are going to be long-lasting, relationships that will be blessed by God. We understand, it's pretty clear that a monogamous relationship whereby we have as little sexual experience before that relationship is important. It's unfortunate that we've actually got this far in our society now, whereby we literally have to clarify and spell out how damaging to individuals, to families, and even to society this degenerate behavior is. But yet this is where we are. So once again, I would urge you to go back and watch this video again. But when you do so, refer to your Bible. Once again, I'm going to go to 1 Thessalonians 4:3-5. It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable. not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God. It's as simple as that, folks. Look, I hope you've enjoyed that. I really do look forward to your comments. I've got a video coming out shortly that features a discussion with Dia, my friend Dia, who she's from the channel Do Not Be Deceived on YouTube. I will be linking, putting links to this, the description box. And also do check out the Facebook for the channel, In-Depth Bible, I should say. That's INDEF and also our Instagram, In-Depth Bible. Really could do with your support. I've just started this channel, and there will be a variety of different uploads over the next few months, but your support is paramount, especially if you believe the message here to be useful. Do share it. You know, that's why I'm doing this, really, to get the message out there. But I need you guys to share. I hate social media, not particularly good at it, so I'm going to rely on you guys to do the sharing for me. And also, just the last thing, I've got that interview I did with Dia has some information in there that is not suitable for YouTube, so I'll be opening up a Patreon for subscribers who want access to the additional information, but you won't know what I'm talking about until you watch the video, which should be coming up just after this one. Anyway, without any further ado, it's a good night from me. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Ciao.